So hi, my name's Roy Thompson. I head up MHA Carpenter Financial Advisors. Welcome to this new series, which I've entitled At the Coalface. The reason for this series really is because we receive a lot of news flow that comes through about what's happening in the world. There's been a series of events, of course, over the course of the last year, not least the pandemic, American election, Brexit. There's been lots to talk about. And what I want to do is, if we look at that news flow, it comes across as very, very negative. If we're to speak to investment managers who are working at the coalface, sometimes the news that they would, sometimes the information that they would get would provide quite a different outlook on what's going on in the world. So I welcome James Giblin of LGT Vestra. LGT Vestra are one of our preferred providers that we use for our clients' investments. And James is an investment manager with LGT Vestra. And I've procured, if you like, their services for the next 14 or 15 weeks. The idea to be sending through a video content like this every couple of weeks. They should be short videos, 3 or 4 minutes in length, just to give you a bit of a flavour about what's going on in investment markets. So James, if we think about recent events, very much in the news, Brexit, tell us what your thoughts are and how that might be affecting investment markets here in the UK and overseas.
Thanks for the introduction, Roy. So just to touch on Brexit, I think it's very easy to get caught up in the news flow of Brexit, and it kind of becomes your whole world, that and the coronavirus, I guess. The thing that I'd like to point out in terms of Brexit is both the LGT Vestra portfolios and most investors' portfolios as a whole, their exposure to the UK market is reasonably low. You have a lot of international equities in there, and your focus on that UK domestic equity market that may struggle or may be impacted by a no-deal Brexit is relatively small. What we think, how we view Brexit is very much around a currency issue. So if we get a deal, the sterling against the dollar will really bump up. If there is a no deal, there is a chance that it will continue to fall. And that's probably how we view the kind of deal or no deal Brexit. And how that impacts on portfolios, we have quite a lot of hedging in the portfolios. So there's a lot of hedged fixed income and a lot of overseas equities. So really the main view around Brexit is on currency. We don't take a binary view. I think there's very few people who really know what's going on in terms of the Brexit deal. It's some of that we monitor constantly, but we're well hedged depending on whether we get a deal or no deal. How this will affect us personally is probably more of an issue. But realistically, in terms of the investment portfolios, whether we get a deal, whether we don't get a deal, it's not something that we're hugely concerned about. We've got good exposure either way, and it's not something that we take a binary view on. So I hope that answers your questions on Brexit, Roy, or doesn't answer your questions, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is if we think about this as an investor, if you had a UK-centric portfolio, Brexit could very much cause an issue because the outcome, which is binary, could have a negative or positive impact on UK investments. If you have a truly well-spread portfolio that has international exposure, Brexit is less of a concern because something will go up while the other thing goes down. If we put that in very, very simplistic terms, and they will hedge each other off to some degree. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a fair statement. I think there's also a fairly strong point that even if you have a lot of UK assets, a lot of their earnings are overseas. So say if you take some of the biggest FTSE 100 companies, a lot of HSBC, Shell, BP, any of these big mining companies, a lot of their earnings are overseas.
Yeah.
So these are huge international companies, where the companies that may either suffer or do very well if we do get a deal and have a bit more of a re-rating are these kind of UK domestic assets. Generally, these are smaller allocations in portfolios. They are smaller in ours, But if there is a deal, these could have a bit of a bounce. Similarly, if there isn't a deal, these assets may struggle a bit, at least in the short term.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And internationally, anything that's going on over the festive period that people should be aware or looking out for in the news?
I guess in terms of political events, at least the known political events for next year, the main one is the Georgia state runoff in the US. The outcome of that will depend how much power Biden has. If he wins both seats in the state, he'll have power across the state, presidential office, and the House. So that's an interesting one there. That's probably the biggest one to follow next year. Elsewhere across the world, there's not a huge amount of elections next year. Some across Europe. There's German elections. Angela Merkel will step down. But at least the known political events are meant to be less this year. I think eyes are very much still on the virus news, on vaccines. These are the kind of main things to watch. And also, I guess, the news over the last 24 hours or so, just this new strain in the UK. It's something that we're watching, but so far, from our point of view, there isn't going to be huge impact on portfolios, at least so far.
Okay, that's great, and I can imagine if we do this and speak again in 2 weeks, that things could change very, very quickly, as I understand. But James, really thank you for your time today, and as I say, tune in again in 2 weeks' time when we'll have a further update. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Roy.